Alright, karibu sana. It is the 4th of November 2024. Kama uko US unasema tu one day left before the US elections. Expectant kabisa. Karibu sana. This is the Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indemuli.
I'm used to Stanley Jeringita. It is the 4th day of November 2024. The good day of the Lord, the day that we as Manchester United fans celebrate the loss of Man City and Arsenal. Karibu sana.
There are better things to talk about today than
it's very important.
Small teams.
It's very...
For example, it is 51 days to Christmas. We continue with our Christmas countdown.
Yes.
Plus,
51
scare statistics. After Monday today, there'll be only 8 Mondays left before we usher in the new year.
It reminds me, this is also that month that we as men, we really celebrate. It's big for men. It's also No Shave November. So,
okay.
Yes.
Tujaribu hiyo.
Tujaribu hiyo.
Even as we continue, we cannot ignore this. On the front page, jana tulifanya maneno pale.
Yes, wanafaa pigiwe makofi.
So kuna Kenya's Sheila Chepkirui won the New York Marathon, with her compatriot Helen Obiri coming second, and Evans Chebet also coming second in the men's category. So it was a really good time for Kenya yesterday in New York. So congratulations to the Kenyan athletes. Another big thing happening today, najua iko kwa diary, lakini lazima tuseme. KCSE exams.
Ile siku una breathe in and out.
English paper 1.
Yes.
Iko leo.
Unaona ile paper ya... What color was it in your ears, by the way?
No, I can't remember. I think it must... mathematics was yellow.
Was yellow.
So English must have been
blue,
a different color.
Bluish.
Yes. So English paper 1 today, and in the afternoon, chemistry paper 2.
Hey.
Even though answer exam. KCSE 2024. So to all the candidates, the 965,000 candidates countrywide sitting for KCSE exams, inaanza ile proper sai.
Success.
We wish you all the best.
Oh, yes. Quite a number of conversations. There's one president who considered defeat in Africa, some sins that you rarely see, and all others. I know you'd be discussing that in State of the Nation.
Yes, today we're going to be having Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, alongside Kipruto Rapkirwa, former agriculture minister in the Kibaki-1 administration, for these discussions. Remember, this is the very first time that in our presidency, we have 2 PhDs. Yes, a professor is deputizing a doctor. So we expect a lot of things to be running smoothly, but
we hope, we expect is the big one.
Are we certain? No, we'll have to wait and see. Kama daktari na professor watashindwa, hata sisi tuhame tuseme tu sawa. We give up. Anyway, so these are the conversations we'll be having with the 2 gentlemen on State of the Nation. Do stand by for that.
Coming up later on, your weekly dose of matches sports. Monday Blitz, Valeria Mwai, as well as Joseph Kuria will be joining Fred Arocho, or rather Shutterboy. Fred Arocho is still at the Dominican Republic. Also, the Under-17 Women's World Cup concluded. It was actually now today around 1 a.m. So we'll stick around just to know the whole results of what happened.
All right. A quick look at the dailies. Cash-strapped farms milking taxpayers dry. That's a big headline on the front page of the Star today. They say agencies are in trouble, and they include Rivertex, Ketraco. Would you believe Ketraco, and National Museums of Kenya? And a very interesting photo of the president.
Yes, among his guys. A new look of the front page of People Daily.
By the way, you would confuse it. I was looking for this paper and wondering, is it the correct one?
Yes, they decided to start the week with a whole new kind of style. They say the agony of Social Health Insurance Fund. We'll be back to take a look at why it is an agony. Insecurity storm. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard today. It talks about Kenya's human rights records, and the issue of abductions and killings that have been dominating headlines for the past few weeks. Coming from former Cabinet Secretary of Interior, now
he's in charge of assisting the president directly.
Yes, will he have that as one of his to-do lists? Experts query Ruto's tax plan. This is coming from the Parliament's economic think tank.
Because they're coming up with new taxes. So lidhani imekwisha na mwekatwa tu shift juzi. Ngoja.
NSSF inakuangalia kwa macho.
Rigathi aanza kufunikwa. Kidogo kidogo tamsahau. Sio mimi nimesema, habari hii kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Tarejelea kuangazia zaidi hayo maswala.
Taarifa nyingine, World Bank resists push to end Kenya power monopoly. As much as quite a number of other firms and other companies have also been trying to end this monopoly, wanasema mbona ni Kenya Power pekee, pia sisi tunataka kukua. World Bank is saying hiyo italeta tachuchu nyingi.
All right. We cross the border into Uganda and they talk about malnutrition eating up kids. It's a worrying report from the Ministry of Health in Uganda. It states that thousands of children are malnourished with food insecurity, poor breastfeeding patterns and poverty, among others identified as catalysts. So yes, the issue of malnutrition, they talk about the number of deaths caused by malnutrition. Obesity is also, you know, people just think malnutrition is kukonda.
Yeah.
But also obesity is a result of malnutrition. Over 2 million children have stunted growth because of malnutrition. 228,000 wasted. Those who are underweight are 764,000. But yes, the ones who are obese, 267,000. That's a worrying statistic. That's a big headline there on the front page of the Daily Monitor.
Still linked with much as health, they said the link between malaria and sickle cell disease. I love the fact that Daily Monitor has given quite a prominence on health matters today.
Yes. And you'll realize that most dailies, including those in Kenya, and we'll be back to take a look at the local front dailies, they have the issue of the U.S. presidential election, which comes up tomorrow. So where U.S. poll will be won or lost, that's a perspective from Uganda on the Daily Monitor. On the New Vision,
Museveni warns MPs on coffee bill. They were to meet on, was it on Friday? And they had this whole conversation about the coffee bill. It has been big news in that country. They say president promises legislators a showdown over UCDA merger. Other conversations, the president we are talking about, he's still wearing his mask, and everyone around him.
Whoever dresses President Museveni, it's the same thing every single
I know.
day. So he has a closet of white shirts which are very long and trousers that look that color. And then
boots.
And boots.
Yeah.
So from Monday to Friday, Friday, same thing, come a uniform. But he's a military man, so he's used to the uniform. Today I want a red shirt. Something very interesting in Uganda, health. Uganda to carry out first liver transplant. Now this is a game changer for Ugandans. If at all they'll be able to carry out such complicated surgeries, it's something commendable there. Also, once again, on the New Vision, the front page, they make mention of the US elections as well. American elections set for tomorrow.
Yes. Into Tanzania, kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, wasema vurugu tupu, utitiri wa bodaboda na bajaji. Sema malalamiko yaongezeka kwa madereva wake kutojali watumiaji wengine wa barabara. Polisi yakiri kuelemewa kuanzisha sheria ya kuwadhibiti wanufaika wa vyombo hivyo, watoa kauli. Haya si maneno mageni kwa wenyeji jijini, ila kwa wenyeji vijijini.
Yes. Hey, I tell you, Burudia, will you be able to?
Haya si maneno mageni kwa wenyeji kijijini, hata nimesahau. Jijini. Ila si
ni mageni kwa wenyeji vijijini.
Bas.
Good. Wanasema 75% ni kiwango cha pikipiki na bajaji katika orodha ya vyombo vya moto vya usafiri kule Tanzania. 75% of public service vehicles is made up of tuk-tuks and bodabodas.
And the reason I'm saying haya si maneno mageni is Kenya really faces such.
Yes, same problem.
Yeah.
And I think the boda menace eventually will become a big problem. In Uganda ni wengi.
Yeah, true.
But at least in Kigali, Rwanda, they are very disciplined. So gazeti la Mwananchi pale, na pia pigaji kura kule Marekani umepewa nafasi hapa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hilo. Wanasema mnyukano lala salama Kamala Trump. Mnyukano lala salama. Hebu kumbuka hiyo tutaitumia next election 2027. Mnyukano lala salama. Right.
On the front page of the Citizen, this is still in Tanzania. It revealed factors behind record high bank profits. The 14 first-tier banks operating in Tanzania collectively posted a record 1.47 trillion Tanzanian shillings in net profits in the 9 months to September 2024, representing a 31% increase from the 1.12 trillion Tanzanian shillings collective net profit that was realized during the corresponding period in 2023. They've also listed the top performers.
It's important to know that there are 2 native Kenyan banks that have been listed there as among the top performers in Citizen.
Equity.
There's a KCB by KCB Tanzania, and there's also Equity Bank, which are ranking among the banks doing well in Tanzania. So Kenya tupo pale. All right, so these are just some of the days.
Oh yes, there's now just to wrap up the
hapa kuna kitu hapo anasema nini?
Oh, Bunge's pledge on excess duty framework
for beer
industry.
So the parliament in Tanzania has promised to consult widely and advise the government on a proper excess duty framework for the alcoholic beverage industry. No, I was just worried, unajua tunaingia wakati wa maneno kama haya.
Interestingly, there's a similar headline on Business Daily on the same. So
excess duty on Kenya.
Yeah, so Kenya pia wanafaa wakae consultatively for East African beers.
Okay.
Wapambane. Speaking of drinks, East Africa milk politics. They say tariffs, protectionist policies, and political interests make trade in dairy products difficult. According to the EAC boss, Nduva is calling for political will to end the frequent spats.
This is on the East African, the regional paper.
Yes.
And they have a very huge photo of Kenya's brand new deputy president taking his oath of office last Friday. Nasema Ruto's new deputy. Professor pale alito nani? Abrake.
Yeah, oh yeah. Terry Jina, the nickname shatter.
Aliona kuna rigijia akasema Abrake.
If apart from Abrake, what other nickname would you?
I hate to do prof.
Prof.
He's the topmost professor in Kenya right now. So those are just some of the headlines in the region. We'll be back to take a look at this local dailies in a short while. Let's take a look at the weather situation this morning.
We'll take a look at the weather in different parts of the country. We'll start off with Kajiado and its environs. Right now it's 17 degrees Celsius. It promises to get as high as 28. That is in the afternoon there.
Very sunny day.
An outlook for the entire week. It's going to be particularly chilly, mostly Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday if you're in Kajiado. Another place to take a look at is in Siaya, to the Nyanza region. 19 degrees right now, but they say it feels like 24. This goes to show what Kenya Met Department was saying about the warmer nights. It's going to be raining in Siaya today. 40% precipitation. Tuangalie precipitation yenye Google inatuambia hapa. 1.5 millimeters. This is some light showers during the day, but then highs of 29 into the evening. This is
kunanyesha lakini it's quite warm.
This is some amazing weather.
Yeah.
Hii ni ya Siaya. Tuangalie in Lamu, to the coastal region.
Holiday weather.
Yeah, feels like 29 and it's 6 a.m. It's going to get as high as 30 and still raining as well.
Sasa hii ndio ile weather inakuchanganya kabisa. You're on holiday in Lamu, temperatures are very high and then it rains.
Yeah.
So you fanya nini?
Inele unakaa indoors but then you're wearing very
you can't go out, you can't
But this goes to show what the Met Department was saying end of last week, that now this week we're going to be experiencing quite the rainfall in major parts of the country. So this is a testament of that. This is in Lamu na kutakuwa kunanyesha pale. Tumeangalia tumalizia na Nairobi. Nairobi is it going to be raining? Maybe it just might be raining into the evening. 5% huko. Tuone hii inatuambia ya ngapi? 0.0 millimeters. So
hata kama kutanyesha sio mvua ya maana.
Ile some very light drizzles. Highest you're going to be getting today is as 26. Taking a look at the diary for today. The KCSE theory exams begin, as Fred had alluded, English paper 1 as well as the chemistry paper 1. But then as early as this particular morning, we're going to be having quite the plethora of activities, quite a number of activities happening in different parts of the country. So first off, Education Cabinet Secretary, anaitwa nani?
Ogamba.
Yes.
Yeah, now I know his name.
Julius Ogamba will be in Kibra, the DCC Distribution Center, opening the exams. Permanent Principal Secretary of Education, that is Belia Kipsang, and TSC CEO, Dr. Nancy Masharia, will be in Mombasa Central, the DCC Distribution Center, and the Kenya National Examinations Council CEO, Dr. David Njengere will be in Narok Central Distribution Center, and the Principal Secretary of Matters Interior, Raymond Omolo, will be in Kikuyu office, the Deputy County Commissioner, also opening the KCSE exam. This will be happening between right now and around 6:30, so stick around for all this. Remember, we'll be giving you a wall-to-wall kind of coverage on how these exams will be continuing. That is just a nutshell of what is expected in our subsequent bulletins. Right now though, tuingie kwenye magazetini.
Right, we start off with the Star this morning. Cash-strapped firms milking taxpayers dry is a big headline on the front page of the Star. They talk about agencies which are in trouble, including Rivertex, Ketraco, and National Museums of Kenya. So they say at least 8 parastatals have been declared insolvent by the Auditor General. It is on pages 4 and 5. So they're still there. Bado tuna, as the taxpayers, were still funding them. But hakuna pesa inaleta. Pages 4 and 5. They say most parastatals are run as businesses that generate revenue to keep them afloat and even make a profit. So hapa kuna shida. Auditor General amesema South Nyanza Sugar Company, Unisoni Sugar, Rivertex East Africa, Kenya Bureau of Standards is also in trouble. And you wonder how. National Museums of Kenya, Kenya Post Office Savings Bank, Kenya Fish Marketing Authority, East Africa Portland Cement. This one is shocking. The Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, Ketraco, and then Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC, is also among those state agencies in trouble.
And this revives the whole conversation of mergers of some of the state agencies, just to really solve this.
Yes. So KBC itakuwa merged na nani?
Yes,
Na Posta. Other quick highlights on the front page of this paper. Aringo, architect of the 844 system, dies at 83. Iya huwezi jua. Peter Olo Aringo, at one time was education minister for the longest time. He died in 1991. This is like 20 years before you were born. Yes, actually, yes. But he's one of those famous cabinet. I didn't even know that he was still alive until he passed on. He's called Peter Castro Olo Aringo. And he used to call President Dale Moi the Prince of Peace. I tell you, back then, when I was... nasoma history too.
I know. So now that will be me 20 years to come telling people about Ogamba and Julius Ogamba.
Another heartbreaking story here, how I lost 7 children in the Shakahola tragedy.
Wow.
That's a very sad story there. Senate launches inquiry into safety of polio vaccine amidst outcry. Now, this is something interesting. It's there on the very top strip of this paper. There had been complaints that these people who walk around homes, knocking doors and saying from the Ministry of Health, we're here to administer polio vaccine to any child below the age of 5. Kuna mahali hapa story haendi mzuri. So at least the Senate is looking into that. That's something very positive, because some people complained that their children suffered after receiving
the whole
oral vaccine.
Side effects of the same.
Yes, side effects. So these are just some of the stories on the front page, given prominence on the front page of the Star. Remember, smart people read the Star.
Oh, yes. The new look of the front page of People Daily has a number of stories, but then the big focus is Matters Health. They say the agony of the Social Health Insurance Fund. In what is turning out to be a botched rollout of health insurance scheme, patients are forced to pay from their own pockets. This is after 1 month and some days of the rollout. You'd have expected some of these teething problems to have been solved by now, but we're still getting some of this on the same. Another conversation that I haven't seen other dailies focusing on is on the very bottom scroll, why Kenyans rejected extending the president's term. Now on Friday, no, actually on Thursday, the JLAC committee, that is the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for the Senate, tabled the report on Cherargei's bill. just to extend the whole president, basically elected leaders' term from 5 years to 7 years. And they said, interestingly, 99.99% of Kenyans who submitted their submissions refused this bill. No.
So it is sababu walikuwa nafanya ya 15 years wasahau.
Yeah, so it is only one group that was in acceptance of the whole bill generally.
Which group was that?
I've forgotten the name, but it's only just one group. Ndio walikubali. So we do expect now the Julia Committee and the Senate to be discussing these matters this week. Probably tomorrow, so it's going to be very interesting. They also had some very interesting recommendations, so stick around. We'll be breaking it down when they discuss it in Senate. Now, they also talk about Harris-Trump hit North Carolina in a final weekend.
Yes.
Right now they're still on Sunday for them.
Yes. I think Sunday night. So they're finishing the official campaigns.
Yes.
So for a day of rest, then people go out to the polls. All right. Insecurity storm is a big headline on The Standard, and they talk about troubled times using a picture of the president and his new deputy, Professor Kithure Kindiki there. But the story is about Kenya's human rights record facing intense scrutiny as both citizens and international allies sound alarm over a surge in abductions and forced disappearances and killings. Now, interestingly, it is the same person who was in charge of internal security who now occupies an even bigger office in the presidency. The West is pressuring Kenya to uphold democratic principles and protect civil liberties amidst mounting tension, and calls for accountability from rights groups and diplomats alike. The story is on pages 6 and 7. They've included pictures of some people who have been reported missing. And it's not just the abductions, it's also the cases of murder.
Yes.
Gruesome murder, women being murdered, and such like. Maverick Kaoko is one of them. Lawyer John Eric Wasonga,
Starlet
Wahu, and Rita Waini.
Yeah.
This was a very much publicized story. So yes, just some of the cases that continue to rise in the past many months.
And the president has been vocal about it, one on during the swearing-in on Friday, and also yesterday during that church ceremony here in Nairobi. He talked about it, and they have a quote there by the president saying, "It is true that we have a big problem. Our young people, especially girls, are being killed arbitrarily. Instead of showing them love, it's now turned into killing them." And it's sad that we started this year in so many cases of this. So it's going to be sad that we're going to be ending this year in the same note.
Yes, there was a discovery of bones, human bones, at the cemetery in Nairobi this past weekend, and they say that even they had been boiled. And you wonder, okay, what exactly is happening? This is what we're talking about, and I don't think just verbal assurances by the president will do much. I think our security forces
Need to step up.
They need to step up and do something better.
Yes.
Greed and graft combined to tear down Amboseli. It is a special report in the inside pages of The Standard. You can read that for yourself. They continue serializing. The story of Millie Odhiambo there as well. Quick other highlights on the top strip of The Standard. A Salem image tainted after deportations. Remember the Turkish nationals who were deported last week. Tainting Kenya's asylum status. Half Kenyan banks face closure. That's a story on the inside business pages, page 19. Half of Kenyan banks face closure. Yes, I was having a conversation yesterday with someone who was telling me he works in a bank, and they were saying, yes, we made a loss. Now we're going to have to be bought out by a different bank. Wow. Yeah. All eyes on the U.S. as it goes to the polls. That's another big story, of course, this entire week. That is going to be the biggest discussion. And finally, just what is going wrong with Arsenal. That's the main story there on the front page, at least a highlight, a pale juu. Exactly. This is the third loss this season. It is a worrying trend. Meanwhile, timu ndogo ndogo kama Man U wanakuja kutupigia kelele hapa asubuhi ati walidraw. Sasa wakidraw, anyway. Let's take a look at the Daily Nation. The big headline, experts query Ruto's tax plans. Now, they say this fiscal year's ordinary revenue target of 2.6 trillion shillings is a long shot. Remember, we have one of the biggest budgets in this region. So, because there's already a plan to introduce tax amendments to the already existing taxes this financial year. So this is a warning. They say slapping Kenyans with more taxes and levies will not lead to additional revenues. Parliament's economic think tank has told the government, which has revived some unpopular taxes. You remember some of the taxes that had been struck off from the Finance Bill 2024 could just be making a comeback. Gen Z mko wapi? Some unpopular taxes withdrawn after public protests in June. The Parliamentary Budget Office has cautioned the state against ambitious targets backed by introduction of new taxes and increase of others, even as Treasury issues proposals to roll out a set of new levies which had been rejected under the Finance Bill. What may have escaped the attention of many people is that on Friday, as the swearing in of the Deputy President was going on, and that was a big news, in the inside pages of the dailies, yes, Parliament had already invited public views and public participation on the reintroduction of quite a number of taxes. Yes.
So it went
so many people did not bother with that. It was a holiday, probably did not even buy your paper, and you're just watching the swearing in of the Deputy President. But new taxes are coming. Parliament washa advertise na wakasema this is what we are planning. Leteni views. Kidogo kidogo unaona tax imekuja unasema hamkutuambia. Well, it was there. Remember, this comes immediately after the deduction of the first 2.75% for SHIF.
Yes.
Na unajua nini, by January NSSF inakuja na inaweza fika karibu 6%. Wow. Kenya tunaendelea tu sawa. At least the Daily Nation has given some space to the winners from the New York Marathon. Kenyans rule the streets in New York Marathon, and we have the ladies. Kenya's Sheila Chepkirui crossing the line as a winner, and Kenya's Evans Chebet, who came in second in the men's elite race. He came second after Netherlands' Abdi Naj.
Yes.
Yes. The former. Former Deputy President.
Yes.
Makes it to the front page of the Daily Nation today. How Ruto camp plots to win back hostile Central. Itakuwa ngumu. Mount Kenya leaders avoiding hostile residents after they helped President William Ruto to impeach former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. They're now planning a grand comeback in the region as others wait in the wings after their rivals fall. Siku hizi hiyo ni ngumu. Hiyo ni a bit
plus it's imekuwa trend for MPs doing something and then they avoid their constituents even after the finance bill voting.
But it says something.
They avoid going back and then they wait for the things to cool down and then now they get back.
And then they are welcomed.
Yes.
That says something about the Kenyan voter as well. That MPs already know. They can do anything to you, then disappear for a few months and come back.
Alafu watarudi.
Na ushasahau. Uko na memory kama ya ngiri.
Unawaundia kabash vizuri, unasahau.
Wanasema huyu ni wetu. That's the Daily Nation today.
Kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo sema Rigathi aanza kufunikwa. Mabadiliko haya, Gavana Mutahi Kahiga au kiongozi wa hivi punde kupendekezwa achukue nafasi ya mfalme wa kisiasa wa Mlima Kenya. Ukipenda sema Kingpin. Wengine ni Ndindi Nyoro, Anne Waiguru, Martha Karua na Irungu Kang'ata. Wadadizi wetu leo watakuwa wanatuambia ni nani anaonekana kuchukua nafasi hii. Vitokezo vingine kwenye gazeti hili pale juu, Musila alima Kalonzo kwa shutuma kali. Siasa ya mwaka 2027 yaendelea, sema adai kiongozi wa Wiper ndiye kikwazo cha ustawi wa Ukambani. Kwingineko pale dada Mary Nabii tajiri aliyeishi kwa umaskini. Snyder Katza, kumbuka alienda one of those Asian countries akaleta a gentleman, akaambia watu kwa church huyu ni Jesus, and she made minted millions from that. All right. Pale chini daktari na profesa wataweza mtihani ngumu kabla ya 2027.
Sasa kuna daktari na profesa, hawatuwezi. Kuna profesa na daktari. Finally, tukienda kumalizia, World Bank resists push to end Kenya power monopoly. Bank warns of surge in prices, contracts backlash. The caution delivered through IMF at Washington DC meeting. There was a big meeting at IMF. And the Treasury CS John Badi alisema he was really embarrassed. He was made to wait kwa corridor.
Anaambiwa pangeni line.
Pangeni line. Daktari anaita mmoja mmoja. Anakuja kusema shida za kwenyu. Wewe yako imefika wapi? That's a business daily. Let's take a look at the cartoons as we wrap up this news review. And this is a cartoon on this is a standard.
Standard.
Aiga.
Oh, okay.
I think No, this is a Daily Nation.
Daily Nation, yes.
Yes, Aiga. So kuna jamaa pale amevaa kofia anaitwa deputy president, he has a badge as a DP. Anaangalia kitabu moja kubwa inasema The Curse of Vice and Deputy Presidents volume 1. This is just volume 1.
Yes. Pale nyuma there are still more, and this goes to show the kind of
ile kazi yako nice kidogo.
It's a lot of intrigue.
This is it. Ile intro ni a different cartoon.
Okay.
Harry is back at the Standard and he talks about the US. Hii kama angeandika majina asingejua. November 5th, 2024 hapo Kamala.
Okay.
Hapa cartoonist hapa.
Mama labda amekasirika sana. Anyway.
This is a duel in a fist fight. Pale, elections coming up tomorrow. Finally, intre the new deputy president, but anasema same thing kama ile Standard, ya Daily Nation. Lessons to learn from previous DPs. Sio kazi rahisi.
Yeah.
I'll declare tu loyalty pledge hapo, lakini mambo inaweza kuwa ngumu. Those are the cartoons, and we'll be looking at some of these themes just after the break with my panelists to stand by for that. Unataka tuangalie traffic.
Yes, no.
Right. Pale Pangani imeshika vizuri sana pale, kwa hiyo interchange, meaning the traffic is building up slowly as you get to town, lakini ukishafika hapo inamaanisha ushafika town. Kidogo tu pale Pangani interchange kawaida if you're coming from Kiambu Road na Thika Road, alafu uingie town sawa sawa. Jogoo Road, it's building up slowly. Pale Makadara next to Mbotela, building up slowly past the St. Stephen's Jogoo Road roundabout towards City Stadium. It's looking nice. Landis Road 2 is building up around areas of Marikiti. Pale Muthurwa pia pole tu, it's not as much. Tumeanza kuingia holiday traffic pole you can see. But then again, during holidays there's a lot of travel.
Yes.
So traffic can actually really build up in town.
And then a whole other caution even for drivers in ile msimu wenye historically we get a lot of accidents.
Yes.
So be very, very careful.
Mombasa Road is building up around Maradaima, ile ya chini. Expressway is looking good. Langata Road looking good. Ngong Road looking good. And Wayakiwe also
looking new.
So that's a traffic situation asubuhi ya leo in and around the city of Nairobi.
Yes.
So yes, just about to get down to business, looking at the main headlines on State of the Nation. Do stand by for that. Monday Blitz coming up later on. Be part of this conversation through our social media channels.
2047 is our SMS number. TV47KE on Facebook.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided
to cross the bridge, buy his house, and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47, today being the 4th of November 2024. It is a big, busy day and a busy week as well. A lot is happening. Remember, away from our Christmas countdown, it's only 51 days to Christmas. We have a number of Mondays to go before the end of the year. Today, KCSE, the theory papers begin. 965,000 candidates sitting their English paper 1 today across the country in various exam centers. Later in the afternoon, chemistry paper 2. So to all the candidates, we wish them well. Something else happening tomorrow, the US election. So that's another big deal. We'll be talking about that and a lot more with my panelists. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, who has also served at one time as a town clerk of this great city of Nairobi. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Next to Bwana Kisia, we have Kipruto Rapkirwa, who has served as a member of parliament for Cherangany constituency and also as cabinet minister for agriculture in the Kibaki 1 administration. Karibu sana bwana.
It's my pleasure.
Yes. Yep. There's a lot to talk about. There's KCSE, there's the New York Marathon where Kenya performed well yesterday. There's also something interesting that I've seen on the papers, and probably the two of you would be better placed to explain to the younger Kenyans who this gentleman was, Castro Peter Olo Aringo, and who passed on at the age of 83 and also served as a member of cabinets before you got the opportunity. Let's start with you, Bwana Kirwa. Those three things is KCSE and probably get to send your message of condolences to the family.
Yes, we wish all the candidates well for the examination they are undertaking today. Those who are starting with English paper 1 and chemistry in the afternoon. I wish them well because it's a huge number, and of course this is a filtering process that many of us as Kenyans look forward to good results for our children. The second issue is to pass my condolences to the family and friends of the Honorable Peter Castro Oluwaringo. We served together for about a number of years, and I credit him with a lot of effort in terms of forming the Parliamentary Service Commission, as you know today. I remember as he was preparing to process that particular paper that allowed us to have Parliamentary Service Commission, he told me, Kirwa, I would wish that in future it's not attractive to be a minister anymore, so that a member of parliament does not have to line up in the corridors of State House looking for money. Of course, parliamentarians today are earning much better than during our time, because as I've said before, we started with 18,000 shillings at the time I was serving my first term. Of course, by the time we were leaving, a member of parliament was earning 751,000, which figure I think is still around that. Except that members of parliament don't seem to be learning from the best. Otherwise, of course, 83 to many people is a lot of years, but to some of us it's 16 years away. And of course, when somebody like that passes on, you realize life is not as easy as you think. It's a fleeting moment in this world. And I wish the families really my deep message of condolences and all the people who knew Peter Castro Oluwaringo.
Yes, and he was one of those flamboyant
yes, very articulate,
yes,
and very focused. And any time he had any debate, it was pleasure to listen to him. Yeah, he had a choice of English words, carefully done.
Talking about the salaries you've mentioned, yes, as an MP, it's there on the page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. As an MP, he earned 8,000 shillings. Then he became a cabinet minister, and his salary went up to 25,000 shillings.
Yes.
Yes. Serious money back then.
It was, because you see, that is much earlier than me, because by the time I go there, it was 18,000. And that is total, that is gross.
Yes.
Then after deductions, of course, you end up with about 9,000. And you take a car loan, at times you end up with almost negative salary. I remember it became an audit query at some stage. It was a lot of money, but still, the issue of constituents is still a major, major problem that even if you are to earn 2 million shillings, it's not enough.
Okay.
Which means what we need to do is to improve the standard of living for our people through improved governance.
Yes. Yep. And what many people do not know is that Peter Castro Oluwaringo was among the main architects of the 844 system as education minister back then. Bona Kisia, what do you remember of this gentleman, even as you comment on him?
Well, of course, let me also join my colleague in wishing the family of Honorable Aringo God's speed, and may he rest in eternal peace. Honorable Aringo served with my late father-in-law, Honorable Elijah Mwangale.
Okay.
And that is a time when we had servant leaders in this country. They were not there for their own stomachs. They were just there to serve the people. And if you look at the history of those people who served at that time, one, they had a stellar career. Politics to them was a career. It was about serving the people. And if you look at almost all of them, over 90% of those people, and particularly those who served in cabinet, were well educated. Those are people who were schooled properly, not characters who bought certificates from universities that are not even known. Okay? So, and almost all of them were extremely eloquent. And of course, finally, but not the least, is that these things you call corruption were not even there. Like right now, a fellow is appointed a cabinet secretary, and in supersonic speed, like we saw what has happened in the last 2 weeks, they become multi-billionaires without working, without building an industry, without even building, a small little bakery shop to bake bread. But you just see flamboyance all over. You see opulence. So, of course, those of us who lived at that time and are still alive, there's a lot we can talk about that crop of leadership. And I just wish, and how I wish that the current crop of MPs were not even half of what we had during those times. So may he rest in eternal peace.
All right. And he was also known as a master of platitudes and a court jester. And I remember famously when he referred to the then president, Daniel Arap Moi, as a prince of peace. And I've never forgotten. He was a young boy back then.
Yes.
But yes, Peter Castro Olo Aringo died at the age of 83 last week. May his soul rest in peace. Back to the issues at hand, and tomorrow is a big day. Far away from this country, in the U.S., the U.S. elections happening. Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party candidate, facing up with Donald Trump, the Republican Party candidate. Now, interestingly, and for some reason, it is big news across the world. And you look even at our dailies, and some of them have given space on the front pages for mention, at least, of these elections. It may matter to us, it may not, but definitely it does mean something for Kenyans. Yes. We've had different administrations, and that has meant different things for this country. There are those who think that generally the Republican Party has been very friendly to policies in Africa, or the Republican policies have been friendlier to African nations as compared to the Democratic Party policies. Issues like presidential fund for Africa, PEPFAR, was a Democratic Party policy. Many people would not know that. We saw the CIA director in Kenya last week, and that said something. With elections coming up, definitely a change in the person sitting at the White House will mean something for Kenya. Bwana Kirwa.
Well, we are part of this global community, and as Kenyans, we take cognizance of the fact that many of our people are in America, and even the remittances that we get every other day, they come here because those people are working there. Of course, Trump himself has a major problem in terms of the way he looks at issues of migration. And therefore, as a people, with some of our relatives there, we are worried that should he win, it might even cause a bit of a problem because of the issues of migration. I'm made to understand some of the Kenyans already in America are worried about that particular win. But we have some solace, because the guy who has been doing predictions for the last 42 years has already predicted Kamala Harris is going to win. We just pray for her, and personally, I think I'm more biased, because I tend to think leadership is likely to instill some sense of togetherness with the rest of Africa, and of course, particularly with us in Kenya. And therefore, that may spell some 4 years of continuity from Biden rule. Of course, I know the government of the day would actually wish her to win, because I think Biden has been very friendly to our country, although Americans generally are very strict about some of the issues of governance, issues like now what has been happening about abductions here in Kenya, and I know whoever wins, they are likely to be very strict on that.
Okay.
Yep.
The polls coming from the U.S. Towards the end of the campaigns show a very tight race. So it could go either way. It could go Trump way or Kamala's way. But we've seen the kind of relationship, especially this administration in Kenya has had with the U.S. Recently, we had our president hosted for an official state visit by the Biden administration. We've seen how influential Ambassador Meg Whitman has been to this administration. A change in administration here will mean a huge change for Kenya as well.
Well, I think let me join my brother Kirwa in confirming that I'm aware that our administration, the Kenya Kwanza government, is down on its knees, praying very hard. I think this is the time the intercessors or prayer warriors are doing an overdrive, praying that President Biden is succeeded by Kamala Harris. Of course, for obvious reasons, that the policies, there will not be a serious policy shift between Harris and Biden. However, we, I think too much about a superpower called America. Yes, being friendly to the head of state of a superpower is useful, but Americans look at their interests. It's not about your interest. So if you don't serve their interest, it doesn't matter. They have no friend. And there's no free lunch in America. Okay? So if you don't serve their interest, they drop you like a hot potato. Of course, President Ruto has served the American interest fairly well. And I'm on record, and I think it is in this studio that I said that, President Ruto came empty-handed from the US. He just came back with loans. He got nothing from there. And up to now, there's nothing to show what he got. But America got so much in return. We gave out a lot. We got almost nothing. So, of course, we are not saying that I am also equally biased, and I'm hoping that Harris can win. One, she's closer to the black people. Two, I think she'll be the first lady to serve since American independence. So, I mean...
that in itself could mark a huge shift in the global leadership, to have a woman at the helm.
To have a president leading a superpower, a lot of things are bound to change. And probably, not just because President Ruto has been friendly to Americans, but because her policies will be driven towards creating a change, particularly when it comes to issues to do with democracy. I am sure, and I'm very certain, that Kamala Harris will not entertain extrajudicial killings. I am so sure that she will not entertain abductions. I am so sure, being a mother or a wife, for that matter, she will not entertain the things that this Kenya Kwanza government are doing. So I'm also praying that, she carries the day. For the first time we see a woman, and probably she's the person that America needs at this point in time. Yeah.
Yet the Democratic Party in the US has been known to have very liberal views, which sometimes conflict with our more conservative nature as Africans. And I remember that even when President Obama came to Kenya, and he tried introducing a different kind of conversation that then President Uhuru Kenyatta was not comfortable with, about the liberal nature of society and how rights of certain groups of people should be respected. There's also the issue of abortion and whether women should be allowed to choose whether or not to keep a pregnancy. Now, those are very strong conversations there. In Kenya, we are very slow to adopt these things. We've seen what has happened with Uganda with the enactment of laws that go against certain things in American norms. Do you think that a Democratic president or a president from the Democratic Party in America could probably influence us in a different way, now that we already say this, the relationship between this administration and the current administration, Joe Biden, is actually a very close one?
Yeah. Well, as my brother Philip Kisia said, the basic principle of international relations is that whatever you do is in the interests of the person doing it. And yes, America, they mind about their own issues, and rightly so, because that is what is required. But as Kenya, We have our own things to do, and Republicans usually are not so keen to what is happening here in Kenya. But what I know is that the American nation is a pace setter for many of the things, apart from, of course, what you've just said about issues of same-sex marriage and so forth. But in terms of democratic space, Democrats are more keen to know what is happening in Africa and how it impacts on their own economy and their own issues. And this therefore means, at the end of the day, a win by Kamala Harris, for me, is going to be a positive thing, in the sense that they are more concerned about what is going on in Africa, and the things that I'm keen on is governance and the issue of democracy. And of course, the issue of human rights, because you cannot talk of democracy without talking about human rights. Issues like abduction, extrajudicial killing, those are things that a serious American leader is likely to focus. And I know Kamala Harris is going to deal with those issues, and we just pray for her.
Okay. Wanakisi, yes, that issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings is a big headline in Kenya today. It's on the front page of the Standard. Insecurity storm. So Kenyan human rights record facing intense scrutiny as both citizens and international allies sound the alarm of a surge in abductions and forced disappearances and killings. The West is pressuring Kenya to uphold democratic principles and protect civil liberties amidst mounting tension and calls for accountability from rights groups and diplomats alike. Are we saying that if probably it changes and the Republicans take charge, that probably the kind of pressure that would come Kenya's way towards containing these vices could be less? And should that be the concern of Kenyans, that what happens in the US could just as well affect our conversation, that if at all they stay democratic, the Democratic Party, then the push for Kenya to actually contain and rectify their human rights record will be bigger than if at all Trump takes over?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, as my senior brother Kira said, Democrats are more concerned about civil liberties, civil rights, democracy, accountability, and so on and so forth. So if Kamala succeeds Biden, you can be sure that she'll change the gear. And she'll come up with policies that will force this administration to address issues to do with those areas that I've mentioned. In the same vein, if Trump took over, I don't really think he's bothered about Africa. After all, if you look at the business America does with Africa, it's nothing to talk about. The only thing is that they use our soil for strategic defense operations. So that's where they benefit. And that's where Africa is considered to be an ally and a strategic partner. But in terms of the economy, we add nothing. We add no value to the American people.
Yet we depend too much on this, especially on this issue. Just looking at our headline, it depends so much on diplomats, the West, and the pressure that comes from there to contain some of the issues that we are facing here.
Of course, the West, because civil liberty, civil rights is a big matter, is a big issue. So they, of course, forced to talk about it, to speak on it, because these are issues that they hold very dear. They are not like most of the African states where civil liberty is something that is put in the back burner. So, of course, you would expect that diplomats from the West will talk about these issues in one voice.
The ongoing debate about the scramble for Africa, just like the colonial days, appears to be a competition to control African and African resources between Europe, Russia now making inroads. You say a change, maybe a Republican administration would not really be bothered about Africa either way. How would that change the life for Africa, not just Kenya?
Well, it is, Africa is the epicenter of resources, both in terms of natural resources, human resource, and other associated resources, in the sense that we are the focus of the rest of the world. This is where business can be done, because intra-Africa trade is still as low as, I think, 28%. And the rest is that we do with the rest of the world. And of course, as you know, by the rule of the thumb, for every dollar that gets to Africa, $7 leave the continent in the same transaction. And this therefore means that this is a place that some consider to be a front for their businesses. And my take is just to concur with Philip, is that if a Republican takes over, they're only concerned about mining from Africa, about getting resources, but some of them may not be concerned about the basic things, that is democracy, human rights, and issues of governance. And I was thinking Democrats are likely to do better in terms of instilling some measure of discipline among African leaders, among, and specifically Kenya, because that is what is worrying me more every day, that we seem to be losing track of issues of governance, track on issues of democracy, and the next phase of onslaught may be the media. Yes, because you see parliament disappeared, judiciary seems to be on its knees, given some of the rulings that they did like 4 days ago, not about impeachment alone, but about many other things, returning 2023 finance bill, issues of shisha, issues of housing levy, and many other rulings that judiciary has done, almost at the behest of the executive. So it worries me if we find that there is somebody in White House that is not keen on what is happening in the rest of the world. We are likely to run into a lot of trouble as a country.
All right. Yep. So the U.S. goes to the polls tomorrow, the 5th of November 2024, to elect a new president. Will it be Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party or Donald Trump of the Republican Party? Yes, whichever way it goes, it will definitely have an impact on your life here in Kenya. So yes, there is something we'll be following up. We'll be back to take a look at what's making big news locally. Of course, now that you have a professor and a doctor at the helm of this country, does it mean anything better for us? That after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
Back. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. I'm still here with my panelists this morning, Philip Kistia and Kipruto Rapkirwa. We now want to take a look at the big headline. And yes, since Friday we had a public holiday for the swearing in of the new deputy president. Professor Kithure Kindiki now occupies that space, deputizing Dr. William Ruto. And on the front page of gazeti la Taifa Leo, kuna habari mbili pale. Ya kwanza zungumzia Rigathi, anasema Rigathi aanza kufunikwa. Tutaangazia hiyo baadaye. Lakini pale chini kuna habari inasema daktari na profesa wataweza mtihani mgumu kabla ya 2027. Tuanzie hapo. Bwana Kistia. Now we have a professor as a deputy president, deputizing a PhD holder. And this, I think, is the most academically learned presidency we've ever had in Kenya. And it comes at a time when we're facing very unique problems with the rollout of SHIF university funding models. So many things that are not working. Are we in a better position now that we have a professor as deputizing a doctor?
Fred, of course, as you've said, this is the most educated presidency that we've ever had since independence, but it is the most inexperienced presidency in terms of leadership and management. Kithure, you cannot actually say that he has a wealth of managerial experience or leadership experience. Ruto has been in politics, yes, for a long time, but it doesn't really pan out. But what I must say, Fred, is that the behavior of this presidency can be summed up with what we saw happening in the last few days. These people behaved like witch doctors or night runners who tweeted Kenyans to a Simon Makonde moment. Okay? Because you saw the speed and efficiency at which things were executed. And the question people are asking is, can they use the same efficiency and speed and effectiveness in dealing with the challenges that Kenyans are facing? Because, look at it this way. In the wee hours of the morning, the night runners, they transmitted information to the presidency and judiciary. In the same wee hours of the morning, an assumption committee was constituted. In the same wee hours of the morning, Musalia Mudavadi was appointed acting cabinet secretary for interior. In the same wee hours of the morning, Mudavadi gave us a Kindiki holiday. I don't know, Kindiki or Mutusi holiday, which we didn't deserve, which we didn't ask for. Okay? And then in the same way, hours of the morning, all the constitutional bodies, judiciary, I don't know, IEBC, which is not in existence, the KRA, they worked so hard, they worked so efficiently, supersonic speed, and they gave clearance reports to the president. In the same morning, they even negotiated with KICC to have an event. It was organized, budget was allocated, millions of shillings were allocated, and things were just rolling, okay? So, and of course the swearing in took place. Now, if the two gentlemen can be so efficient in terms of execution, there's a job that is waiting for them. But what I would say, Fred, is that now that we have a professor, and not just a professor, but a professor of law, yeah, who is going to deputize a friend who already publicly admitted that he has been lonely. He has been lonely at the top. He is now even telling us that even the 22 cabinet secretaries he has are bure. That's what he has said. That's what he has said. It is not us who has said. He has said that I'm lonely. I cannot even talk about the programs that we are rolling out because the people have a bure kabisa. Now that he has admitted he's lonely, joined by a friend who is a professor of law,
a very loyal,
the first and very loyal friend, who also swore allegiance to the president alone. He didn't talk about the Kenyan people. He never talked about you and me. He just said, I have my boss and so on and so forth. The first thing I would expect from Kithure Kindiki, because he represented Dr. William Ruto in ICC 1, he should tell him that you must run away from the things that you have been doing. If my former colleague failed to advise you, as a professor of law, I am telling you that if you don't stop this bad behavior, you are going to face ICC 2. And I may not be competent to represent you. You saw what we went through. Because abductions, extrajudicial killings, murder, and so on, corruption, and what have you. These are things that Kithure, who we still think is fairly clean, will advise his friend. Things to do with high taxation that are bogging down Kenyans. We are hoping that he's not a taxman, he's just an advocate. But I think because he's sober, he will tell his friend who has been lonely at the top that these are the things that they must address with speed, just the way they swore in the deputy president in a matter of hours. Okay? So, I'm just praying that that Kithure will not be reporting to other people, because I think that's what Rigiji refused to do. Rigiji made it very clear that my boss is a president. So these small little boys who move around State House giving instructions that we know should be avoided at whatever cost. That Kithure Kindiki should have access to the president, not through some little proxies, some little boys who have never seen the classroom, who are advising the president and who are blocking, So I hope that the presidency will operate in a neater manner than it has operated in the last few months.
Is that what we really need, a neater presidency? Something that works seamlessly with loyalty that cannot be questioned from the deputy. Now that we have a professor, is that the only quality we can get from this?
Well, for me, loyalty is important, but just allow me to wish well Professor Kindiki on the assumption of the office, though there are so many dark spots that are still likely to chase him, including the issues in court of law. Imagine, Fred, if in the fullness of time, regarding Gachagua is vindicated that some of the grounds that were laid against him will not meet the threshold of the law. What would be the position of Kithure Kindiki? It will look so awkward that you have been occupying an office when the occupant of that particular office did not go through fair justice. I do not want to engage into the issues that bedevil that particular issue in court, because it is not within my purview. But as an ordinary citizen, as a layman, I still feel there are many things that need to be wasted out of the way for that issue to sit neatly. But the most important thing in terms of really governance and leadership is the fact that the president himself has refused to let go. He's just persistently become a micromanager, and even that cry that he was lonely is because he has his own imagination on how things should be run. At times, people give a lot of credit to President Kibaki, not because he was giving instructions every morning to his ministers, but because he let go and he allowed the officers in government And I can assure you and other Kenyans that we have a well-trained public service. A well-trained public service that just requires the leadership from the minister and of course down from up from the president, ministers, and those who are working with them. So my worry is that yes, Professor Kindiki may be a very nice person, maybe somebody who has gone to school very well, but will he have the space to advise the president when we know our president advises his advisors on how to advise him? Because you see, the issue of GNCs and the way he behaved, I realize the president has not been taking the benefit of a nice report because we saw it coming. We talked about it. Then it caught up with him. And you can see he's going back to the same bad manners by almost bringing back the taxes that many Kenyans did not approve of. And this therefore means Professor Kindiki is likely to be a flower girl who is just going to be around the presidency. He may not benefit from the wisdom and the knowledge he has about how things should be done, because President William Ruto believes in himself. He does not believe in anybody else. But I saw the excitement with which he received Professor Kindiki, which actually confirmed our fears that all these issues about impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was at the behest of the president himself. That excitement, he behaved like a young man or a young boy who has just gotten to high school for the first time. And some of the platitudes he gave to Professor Kindiki were not in step with the stature of somebody occupying the office of the president. That's my worry.
Okay. But it would appear that loyalty is what the president needs. Is that what he needs right now? There are so many problems. He seems to prioritize loyalty above everything else. Is that the only dividend we can get from having a professor as his deputy?
You see, let me also just speak from where my senior brother has left. You know, those of us who grew in Eastlands, we used to say, de mpya, lazima pate hamjam.
Oh, okay.
Lazima pate hamjam.
You can explain to us.
Bonakiro does not understand that.
You saw the very tight hugs that the president extended to his now new principal assistant. Those are the hamjams. Yeah, hamjams.
Okay.
But you see, loyalty is important, but leadership and managementship is not about love. I don't need to love you to work with you. We just need to have mutual respect. Okay? We just need to know what is required of each one of us. Okay? So even if they, they're acting lovey-dovey, like we've seen, they're lovey-dovey, they're friends, and they don't know what is required of them, we are going to see more disaster happening. Because none of them would be advising each other. These are just two guys giving each other hamjam. They are lost. And really we're courting disaster. Okay? Like my brother Kiru has said, those of us who served under President Kibaki, we succeeded by one, having a shared vision. That is what was the driving force, that we all were speaking from the same script. Okay? Then each one of us were assigned duties. These are your goals. This is what is expected of you in this particular time. These are the resources that you are being given to enable you to do the job. After that, there were no phone calls. There was nothing like, there was no love. It was about now you sitting down to execute your mandate. So I am so worried with the current administration. They have given this thing we call performance management and performance contracting a back burner. You don't hear them talk about it. And when you hear them talk about it, it's just a ceremony to confirm that people signed contracts. Those contracts during Kibaki's time were taken very seriously. It was actually like a religion. It was like a religion. And people gave those things time. including the head of state. But the difference between the current one and the man we had, Kiru and myself, was he was a good manager. He understood managementship. The current one has no idea of managementship. He's also weak in leadership. He doesn't believe in delegating. And that is why, just the other day on Friday, in his own admission, Fred, not you, he said he's lonely. He's just appointed these characters the other day. Then the question would be, you sacked, again, by your own admission, you sacked the cabinet secretaries who are there, most of them, because you say they're inefficient. Then you appoint new ones, and in record time, again, you're complaining. You're saying that they are not doing their jobs. In this case, as a manager, I'm telling you, Fred, the problem is not the appointees. The problem is the person appointing. He has no idea of what needs to be done and how it should be done. Therefore, if people are expecting miracles from this administration, because one Kithure Kindiki has been appointed, you are in for a rude shock. Because at least Rigiji was a rabble rouser, and he created a lot of heat. And he kept on reminding him that, and in fact, in his last days in office, he kept on talking very, good things, nice things, reminding the president that we were not elected to overtax people, that we were elected not to kill people. We are elected to deliver services. Let us focus and let us deliver on our promises. So if, like I heard somebody say that he wanted to replace Rigiji, and I hold no brief for Rigiji, but he wanted to replace Rigiji with a friend who is a yes man. Yeah? Kithure, right, yes sir. Kithure, left, yes sir. So that is a situation we are getting into. It is a very dangerous a place to be in. It's not a good space.
Politically for William Ruto, it may work. It may be just the kind of working relationship he needs. If you look at the cartoons today, the one on the Daily Nation and the one from the People Daily, I think you have a copy of the Daily Nation there. They talk about the Deputy President and what is ahead for him. On the Daily Nation, the gentleman is looking at a very big book written, titled The Curse of Vice and Deputy Presidents, Volume 1. On the People Daily, it's a scale and it's a balancing act of the Deputy President with his in-tray, which talks about the lessons to learn from previous DPs. That's the People Daily. So it would appear that the concern that everyone is seeing, or the kind of advice that everyone may be giving the Deputy President right now, is that, look back and see how your predecessors have performed, learn from that. Is that the same kind of advice you would give Professor Kithure Kindiki going forward?
Well, usually many Kenyans have been analyzing the position of the Vice President at the time and now Deputy President, with certain aspects being lost. It does not take the Deputy President to survive. It takes the President to be a gentleman, to work with people that are associated with this regime. Remember, we had about 10 Vice Presidents. Then we've had 3 Deputy Presidents. And it has not worked on the first 2. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto never worked very well. And today, Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto have not worked very well, one being the deputy of the other. But what worries me is that we don't seem to have the right chemistry and the right design of that particular office. In my opinion, the office does not have a problem. It's the individuals occupying that office and those who are the bosses of those people. The 3 vice presidents that we had for Kibaki 1 and Kibaki 2, the late Wamalwa, of course, he passed on within a very short time of about 6 months or so. Although at that time they were working very well with Kibaki. Mzee Mudi Awori worked very well with President Kibaki. the person who occupied last, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, worked very well with Kibaki. So the common factor is that it's Kibaki himself who knew how to handle those people who are working with him. But in this case, the way I see it, for the 3 deputies that we've had, it is William Ruto to decide to work very well with Kindiki, not Kindiki to learn how to work, to deal with Ruto. Because Ruto, as I've told you, is a micromanager. And you'd want everybody to say yes. And even the papers, of course, you've seen that even at the cabinet level, he's the first one to pray, then he prosecutes almost all the papers, then he's the last one to pray. And of course, even when he went to Haiti, he did the same thing. He was the choir master, he was a prayer master, and the guest of honor for that particular time. So, but when you look at the issue of deputy, whether it's deputy governor, deputy president, we seem not to be getting it right as a nation. And we seem not really to give a solution to it. In my opinion, and I may not be qualified to say so, but just allow me to say that this position of deputy president, increasingly we are not getting it right because of what I call political bad manners. We don't seem to want anybody who will question a position you've taken as a leader. And for us, leadership, in the raw nature of it, is that if you're a leader, you think you know everything, and therefore you want to dictate to those who are under you or those who are working with you. But if we are to improve political hygiene and allow some kind of team building, so that whatever I say, whatever you say, is supposed to be complement to what we're doing, but not to be giving instructions on those who are under you. Yep.
All right. So is that the same kind of advice you'd give the deputy president now that he's there, is keen to work, probably he's more learned, not probably, he's actually more academically learned and qualified than any other deputy president before his time. What kind of advice would you give to him?
No, we had others. We had Professor
Saitoti.
No, I'm saying as far as deputy presidents are concerned.
Okay.
Professor of mathematics was...
Well, you're asking me to give Professor
Kindiki advice going
advice. I don't know whether I'm better in a better position than anybody else to give Kithure advice. But I would, one, knowing his friend, who is now his boss, I'm assuming that he knows his weaknesses. I'm also assuming, in the same breath, he knows his strengths. Now, since he knows him fairly well, let him not compete with his boss. Let him remain subservient. Advise him, not in public, advise him in the back office. Because a principal assistant's job is not to be on the front line. You are a principal assistant. So keep to your lane. Do what you are given to do. Advise when advice is sought. But even when you see your boss taking the wrong direction, please have the courage of telling the president, who fortunately is your boss. We have seen it so far, the lovey-dovey. Advise him properly. Tell him that these things that we are doing or you have been doing need to stop. You know the challenges we went through when you were facing criminal charges at ICC as your friend, and now you are deputy and a principal assistant. I would not want to see you in that situation. We don't want to see you facing ICC 2. So to avoid ICC 2, these are the things that you must avoid, particularly things that are criminal in nature. Okay? Criminal in nature, like murder happening under your leadership, stewardship, like abductions happening under your leadership. And you cannot run away from this. Because I hear, like my brother Kirwa said, that there are things that we're going to hold Kithure to account, whether he likes it or not, whether he has moved on to a new office or not. The extrajudicial killings happening during his time. He can try and hide behind, I don't know which article, that covers the Ministry of Interior, that his job is to give guidance and his job is to make policy. The question is, were the policies which he is making and the guidance he was giving people who work with him to kill our children, to murder our children? This is the question that we must ask Kithure, whether he likes it or not, whether now he's putting on a better suit than he was putting on. There are hard questions that Kithure will have to answer now or in future.
Okay. And speaking of that position of CS Interior, because now with his elevation to Deputy President, even Musalia Mudavadi is only acting in that position. I'm looking at a tweet here by one of the controversial MPs from ODM, George Peter Kaluma.
Yes.
And he says, let all communities of Kenya get their due constitutional share of public service appointments. The position of Cabinet Secretary for Interior and coordination of the national government should go to a Luo. Luos are the greatest defenders of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Of course, there'll be that jostling for some of the positions, especially in cabinet. This CS Interior is one of those most coveted. ODM, by all standards, after what they did to assist Kenya Kwanza in this impeachment process, are definitely justified to claim their pound of flesh and say, okay, fine, we need something in return. He may be justified in this, but also the choice of someone to occupy the position of CS Interior is going to be key going forward, especially with the kind of concerns that people have in matters of abductions and these extrajudicial killings.
Well, I thought ODM is slightly bigger than the Luo community because there are many Luyas in ODM. There are other Kenyans, including the Mala.
He does not even talk about ODM, he just simply talks about his
Luo. Okay. Well, as an MP, he's right to say that, but I think we need to look for somebody suitable to run that particular office, regardless of the community he comes from. And of course, with the risk, if the Honorable Pogisho was here, he would have said, I'm President's advisor. In fact, if I was to really give advice to the President, is that I would wish that Musalia Mudavadi retains the office. Then somebody else is given foreign affairs. Why? Because the character of Musalia, in my opinion, he exudes some kind of stability, some confidence that he understands. And having been a minister before me, I know he understands government better than most of us. And therefore, that Minister of Interior needs somebody level-headed, somebody who is likely to take every matter that comes to his desk seriously. And when I scan the environment, I don't see somebody more suitable among the current ministers. And even when I just look beyond the cabinet and think of individuals, there may be many Kenyans who qualify, but for the balance of the time, and I really always the time I pray for the stability of this country. I think Musalia will be a more suitable candidate for that particular position. Get somebody else to run the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And there are many Kenyans also. He can elevate some of the PSS he has. We can also decide to get somebody from outside. But what worries me is this issue of lifting an MP to a position of CS and creating a vacancy for a by-election. Now we are looking at the face of things. We may need to do 2 by-elections out of that kind of appointment. And of course, with the lack of IBC, those constituents will remain unrepresented for quite some time. Because I could see even the panel that's supposed to get the commissioners has not yet been accepted fully. There is a case in court. So my take is that let's not tribalize Kenya. Let's get a good Kenyan, whether it's a Maasai, whether it's somebody from the coast or any part of this country who can run that particular show.
But this will be definitely one of the biggest bones of contention with the current arrangement, even ODM being there. The president, of course, has some of his closest allies. He would want someone who's closer to him. Ideally, the position of CS Interior has always been retained for someone very close to the president, with ODM saying and jostling for that position, for whichever community, I'm considering them as a party. This could affect the stability of this administration.
Remember, he's also ODM.
Yes.
So he's biased.
He may be interested in the job himself.
In the job himself.
You know, if because a pipe dream, if I was ever considered, because a pipe dream, at least there's one thing you can be sure about. I will not leave my head behind. I'll walk in with my head. But that said and done, Fred, the position of Interior Secretary is so important. It's a nerve center of everything. Okay? And you cannot afford to give it based on friendship, based on tribe. You must just give that position, and many other positions in government, particularly at cabinet level, it should be based purely on competence. Yeah. So even if it was to pick somebody from Sabot, or Masai, or Loyaland, let that person be competent and able to perform the duties of Cabinet Secretary Interior. You know, this administration has 2 years to work. 2 years. And they need stability within the 2 years. So in choosing the next secretary to oversee that docket, let him have that in mind, that he does not have the luxury of time, okay? That we shall be sending him packing in another 24 months. We shall be asking him to prepare to leave State House in the next 24 months, if he's lucky. If the Gen Zs don't do another round 2, okay? So, but if he behaves well, the chances are that you survive until 2027. So we are watching him. If he gives that docket to an incompetent human being, that is his own doing. We shall continue clapping, but that clapping will not be clapping to say he has done a good job. It will be now sending him home earlier than the Constitution
what do you say
provides
to this? What do you say to this demand by members of your party? Because I'm sure when an MP tweets like this, it's not coming from nowhere. It must be something that has been discussed in some circles within the party. ODM right now can boast of giving President William Ruto some level of stability, that without he would be quite unstable in this administration without the support he had in Mount Kenya.
You know, Fred, there are mistakes that our party leader has made. He has had a stellar career in politics. And I can tell you, Fred, that I am still to understand why ODM and my party leader decided to join this government. Because everybody knows, even children who have not been born, they know that this government is headed in the wrong direction, that this government, you know, is the worst government that we've ever had since independence, okay? You can see what happened to Raila. And I've said this before, that I have never understood why my party leader, but again, you must understand that, you know, he's a nationalist. And maybe when the country is at the brink of collapse, he steps in as a statesman to salvage. But if I were the one advising, because unfortunately I'm not, if I was the one advising him, I would have said, allow this thing to collapse. Then we can have a rebirth of a nation. Because even by joining them, now they are being condemned wholesomely. They are being condemned as being part of an incompetent government that cannot deliver to the promise they have made to the Kenyan people. So all the bad things that are happening in this government, we are forced to take blame as ODM. We are, you know, we've been lumped together with this corrupt regime. It is not working well for us. Because we are on the ground, we are listening to people, we are listening to what people are saying. They are still asking very hard questions. They are asking us, can you explain to us why you had to salvage this man when the Gen Z had brought him to his knees? Can you explain to us? We don't have answers. But I'm just praying, Fred, knowing my party boss, knowing my leader who I admire, knowing him very well, that he has not walked in to dance with these fellows, that very soon we are going to see a Tinga moment, that this thing is going to blow up. If they don't change their ways.
Could this be just the beginning of the...
I can tell you, if they don't change their ways, if they don't stop corruption, if they don't reduce taxes that are affected, you know, Raila is a people's person. And Raila listens to the ground. And the ground is telling him, Baba, we are not supporting this. So he's listening. And I will not be surprised, Fred, when you hear that house crumbling through a Tinga effect.
All right. I'm still looking at tweets by Honorable Peter Kaluma.
Yes.
And he has very interesting, he tweets a lot about Trump. He supports Donald Trump for some reason.
Yes.
So I'm just fishing. And in one of the tweets, he talks about what has happened in Azimio. He says, imagine Eugene Wamalwa and his party have left Azimio. Which Azimio? How many MPs has he? Then he goes on to say, or to declare, that the ODM party will form the next government. Now, once again, I'm saying that these are just some sentiments that may be coming from an MP, from his own thinking, and there's been a warning by the minority leader that they should tone down on their engagement with other people, especially on the workings of this new broad-based alliance. But when he comes out and declares that the ODM party will form the next government, it means that ODM is still keen on ascending to power. Right now, he's the same MP demanding that now that position of interior be given to a certain person from a certain part of this country. That will definitely continue. That, as Bwanakisia says, there could be a different plan. Could this be the beginning of that plan, that by occupying a bigger stake within this administration, they could probably be able to change the direction of this administration in the way it's working, or this could be just the beginning of ensuring that this administration implodes from within?
Well, this is a Ruto administration, and I don't think Ruto will give space to anybody else. And if, of course, Kaluma, I'm happy that he's dreaming about forming the next government. It's possible, anything can happen. Raila may lose a position at AU and come back a monster to William Ruto, because I know many Kenyans who support Raila, they actually don't wish him to win that AU position, because they want him to run against Ruto in the next election. But the issue of saying Eugene does not qualify to say anything, Eugene's party has 5 MPs. And for the sake of assisting him to understand history, in India, there was a stalemate at some stage. And somebody who had only 2 members of parliament was able to acquire a very senior position, because the 2 members, either way, if they went to left, the person on the left would form the government. If they went right, that would be the case again. And he negotiated and occupied a very high position. I think he was made Minister of Foreign Affairs in that particular country. So numbers count. Even somebody with 1 MP can make a difference. And therefore, this dismissive attitude, almost behaving like it is he who made ODM what it is, I think Kaluma is overreaching himself. He just needs to understand that this country belongs to all of us. With 10 MPs, with 1 MP, or without an MP, you still occupy that particular space called Kenya. And therefore, well, it's good for him to imagine. But if Raila is not running in ODM in the next election, I don't see ODM unless William Ruto will move to ODM. That will be a very serious contention. If he was to dissolve ANC, UDA axis and move to ODM, he may inherit that constituency. And of course, with the support that he has from elsewhere, he may have a contention with the presidency. But what I know, and given the history of this country up to where it is, Ruto is going to be one-term president. Yeah.
This kind of excitement you see from MPs from your party, it's what could be the reason why even the minority leader came out and told MPs to tone down and not to engage too much or to talk too much about this new broad-based. It is actually the subject of a commentary on one of the dailies, I think People Daily, that the minority leader is telling MPs what to say, what not to say. But this says a lot about the intention of the ODM party, the kind of excitement going around the members of parliament, and the intention in this administration. You've made some very interesting suggestions about what could come next.
Well, you see, you don't expect too much from our members of parliament. Most of them are there to serve their own interests. So you must excuse them for showing that excitement. Okay? They were probably in the cold. They were probably not able to make deals. But now with a few of them in government, they probably think that it will be very easy now, to have a pound of the flesh, which is being very simplistic. That pound of a flesh is going to last not for too long. It is any time from now, between now and 2027, that pound of flesh can disappear. So I would want to advise my party members that the ground has completely shifted. And anything that you do that associates yourself with the current regime, you continue making yourself extremely unpopular. And I think that message will be sent to most of these members of parliament, senators and governors, come 2027. They're still, like my brother Kilo said, they're in dreamland. They're still dreaming. They're still feeling good. They don't know that, the ground is really volatile. The ground is really annoyed. And the judgment that will be passed very soon is going to be the harshest judgment we've seen in Kenyan politics. I see over 90% of members of parliament, governors, and senators going home. Over 90% are going home. So let them change their course. Let them know that this is not their dance. They should actually exit from the dance floor sooner than later.
All right. As we come to the end of the conversation, let's focus on what will happen next for Mount Kenya. It is a subject of the big news on the front page of Taifa Leo. Habari kuu kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo inasema Rigathi aanza kufunikwa kwa kufahamu kuwa huenda Gachagua akazuiwa kuwania uongozi. Mlima Kenya sasa wawazia mrithi wake. Gavana Mutahi Kahiga, ni mabadiliko tu, anasema Gavana Mutahi Kahiga awa kiongozi wa hivi punde kupendekezwa achukue nafasi ya mfalme wa kisiasa wa Mlima Kenya. Wengine ni Ndindi Nyoro, Anne Waiguru, Martha Karua na Irungu Kang'ata. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. On the front page of the Daily Nation, something similar there. They say how Ruto camp plots to win back hostile Central Kenya. Mount Kenya leaders avoiding the hostile residents after they helped President William Ruto to impeach former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua are now planning a grand comeback in the region as others wait in the wings after their rivals fall. We've seen and heard the president's pronouncements in the past few weeks, most notably during Mashujaa Day celebrations, where he talked about independence heroes not coming from one village and all this. So when we see headlines seeming to suggest that the president will still be keen to win back hostile Mount Kenya region, we wonder, okay, how exactly is he going to do it? That's on one hand. On the other, there's already a semblance of a movement within that region. Rigathi Gachagua appears more or less towards the end of what would have been or would be his political career. What does this portend and what next for that region?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I hold the opinion that Rigathi Gachagua, if he's impeached, the way he has been impeached, if it is to be validated by a court of law, is more dangerous than when he was a deputy president. Dangerous in the sense that he will not be running, but he will be having a sizable constituency that if he was to transfer to any of the candidates in the opposition, that constituency will make a lot of changes. Remember that the constituency of Mount Kenya, 47% of the votes garnered by President Ruto came from that particular region. Number two, the issue of Mount Kenya is not about Rigathi Gachagua alone being impeached. There are certain promises that the president made in the run-up to the 2022 general election that the Mount Kenya bloc feels that they are being cheated. This therefore means that the president may find it very hard to navigate the landscape of Mount Kenya. And I know the people of that particular region, once they go, they don't look back. They move and move and move on. And finally, it is important also for the people doing obituary of Rigathi Gachagua to rethink their strategy, because until somebody is dead and buried, any political move can resuscitate the lifeline of any individual, including our former deputy president.
All right.
Because if the court of law was to say all the 5 grounds that he was impeached and the process that was used were not right, including the lack of IBC, Rigathi Gachagua'S line may be extended beyond what we take today. But as I've said, it's more dangerous to William Ruto when he does not have a chance to run in the next election. He will make sure that Ruto runs out of town.
All right. And you've seen the kind of sentiments going around Mount Kenya. And right now their music is trending on TikTok and other social media. There seems to be an awakening of some sort, which was witnessed even during the Ndumberi meeting 1 week ago. Do you agree with the sentiments by Bwana Kirwa that it is too soon to write the obituary or the political obituary for Rigathi Gachagua? And if not, what next for Mount Kenya?
You know, Fred, it is extremely dangerous in strategy to downplay your opponent, even when you think he's wounded and on his deathbed. So until somebody is completely declared dead, buried, and even, you know, you put concrete on that grave, you know, any miracle can happen. So Rigiji, from where he is wounded, but I can tell you, from what we are seeing, the community feels it has been betrayed as a community. That the people from Central Province who had faith, who trusted William Ruto, have been betrayed. If you look at the projects that Uhuru had started, he started, you know, undoing them. The appointments Uhuru made, he undid them. So everything Uhuru started for Central Province has been undone. Okay? Now, people have come to realize that Uhuru had given them a warning shot. And they said, having worked with this gentleman for some time now, he's not a man you can trust. He's not trustworthy. So, he fired a warning shot. But even at very personal level, because by betraying Rigiji, who really went out of his way to fight for William Ruto's presidency. He was even stripped naked in front of his family because of associating with one William Ruto. I think even at personal level, there's an issue of betrayal. But what is, you know, when I read in the papers that they are trying to make a comeback in Central Province, that province is extremely hostile. It is a complete waste of time. You've already destroyed them. You've destroyed their businesses. You've destroyed them as a people. Every policies that you've come up with are against this particular region. They are not working for them. Do you think that in another 1, 2, 3 years, they will have recovered? Do you think they will forget the pain that you've taken them through? These are human beings who have feelings, okay? So if I were the one advising Dr. Ruto, and I'm hoping that Kithure, who is fairly sober, will tell his boss, it's a waste of time. Thank God that you have given me a job. I'm now a deputy president. It is something that I never dreamed to be, but I'm here. I can advise you that if you give me some little tidbits here and there, I can try and get you some little votes from Mount Kenya East. But Mount Kenya West, forget about Mount Kenya West. They will not listen to William Ruto. You can see even when they are having their concerts, when they are having their get-togethers and what have you, they are only saying one thing, that William Ruto must go. How is that going to change? When people have made up their minds? It is too late.
Okay.
Too late.
Yet, when you look at some of the intrigue, the expectations that comes with the new deputy president is that at least there'll be some political dividends for the president from that region. But looking at the person of this professor, who is now the principal assistant to the president, does he look like the kind of individual who could go out of his way to now play proper politics to ensure the mountain tilts at least to a certain extent towards the president?
I think what I can say is that it's too nice to be effective, because in politics at times you have to combine being nice, being persuasive, and also convincing. He may be lacking those three aspects, and therefore, for me, he's a good friend of mine. But I think in terms of gravitas, he still lacks it, in terms of political gravitas. And of course, the method through which he has acquired that position of deputy president is something that puts a lot of blemish on his character as a person. Personally, I was for him at the beginning of time. And I was among those who felt he was a good deputy to William Ruto because their character were likely to be complementary, given that Rigathi and Ruto, in our own perception, and for those who have done industrial psychology, we knew they were not compatible from the beginning of time. But now Kindiki has come in at the wrong time and through the wrong process. And this therefore means that he is going to do a lot of convincing, even for him to gain legitimacy, whether it's east or west of the mountain. Perhaps he may have some bit of comfort, because for the first time, east of the mountain is occupying an elevated position. But generally, the mountain thinks together. Even during the tough times of President Moi, he used to enjoy some semblance of support in the east of the mountain, but west of the mountain, he never got any support after the multipartyism came to town. So I still believe that Kindiki has a lot of obstacles that he has to overcome.
Right.
And therefore he may not have time to assist his boss. And the boss perhaps is likely to be faced not only by the process of removing Rigathi, but also by the promises he made that he has failed to fulfill. Right. Many of them. Yep.
Okay. Final comments, Bonakisi.
Well, certain very interesting things have happened in the last few days, and I'm hoping that my president and friend, Samoei Ruto Doctor, has learned from what is happening elsewhere. We saw President Masisi, former president of Botswana, leaving office in a very decent way and accepting defeat, a humiliating defeat, heavy loss. A party that has been in power for 58 years only managed to win one seat. And you saw President Hama even dancing. It doesn't happen that way. So I'm hoping that President Uhuru will not be the one dancing in 2027 and caning Ruto as he goes out of office. Finally, another interesting moment, again, that has happened in Africa, Guinea-Bissau. President Umaro. President Umaro has told us publicly, told the world, that based on advice given by his wife, his good wife, he has told the president, my dear, the ground is hostile. Don't even waste your time going for a second time. I'm hoping that Rachel has also learned something from this one to advise the president that the ground is hostile, and if he wants peace, is to focus on delivering for the next 3 years and forget about re-election.
All right. Banakiro.
Just allow me to congratulate the Kenyans who did well, starting with Sheila Chepkurui, Helen Obiri, and Evans Chebet. We wish them well, and we say this is something that has promoted the image of this country more than all the ambassadors put together.
All right.
Because any time national anthem is played anywhere in the world, you feel that spirit of patriotism coming back to us.
Right, and you're talking about the New York City Marathon that took place yesterday, and yes, Kenyans Sheila Chepkurui emerged victorious in the women's race ahead of her compatriot Helen Obiri, with Kenya's Evans Chebet coming in second in the men's events. Thank you so much, Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Cabinet Secretary, Kibaki One administration, also served in the National Assembly as MP for Cherangani. And Philip Kisia, leadership and governance expert, was also served as the town clerk of this great city of Nairobi, with some very interesting insights into the headlines, making it big to the front pages today. Of course, a lot of people talking about the new deputy president is still very new, brand new. Professor Kithure Kindiki, only 3 days old in the job, and still people talking about Rigathi Gachagua, who's still in court, but the politics of the mountain still managing to dominate the headlines. Well, that's as far as the big headlines are concerned. After the break, Monday Blitz, Shutterboy will be in studio for this conversation with sports analysts Valerie Mwai and Joseph Kuria. A lot of sports coming from the weekend.